Oh, yes. That's fail safe.
That's the fail-safe way of logging
Yeah,
on.
exactly. Or throw it against the wall. I mean, any one of those works pretty well. All right. What time is it? 4:59. Wow, I only have to edit a minute off the beginning of this.
There you go.
Not too bad.
Yeah.
All right, the show just went live. We're starting to spool up the viewers. Thank you all for coming and being here for the live show. We really, really appreciate it.
Clearly, you have nothing better to do.
Time-shifted world where nobody does anything live. We appreciate you, and you, and you, and you, and you,
And you.
and you, and you. Thank all of you.
All right.
You know, the liveness of the show is very important to us.
Yeah.
We need some real regulars that come on. We have Jeff Holman who's doing the chat room. He's here. Hey, Jeff. We have Jamie, Bettina, Ayana Torno. And maybe some of these people are your students. I don't know.
I recognize some of them.
Patricia Andrea, we know her name for sure.
Bettina, I recognize. She just joined Wovo. Good for her.
Right on. Thanks.
All right.
Cool.
Okay.
Excellent.
It is 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
Let's wind it up and
Let's do it.
Figure out something here. Hey, it's time for VoiceOver Body Shop. How's everybody doing out there? George, how you doing? Having a great week?
Had a great week and a great weekend too. So great to be back.
It's good to be back, and it's always good to have everybody out there watching us or listening or whatever it is they do. Our guest today is right below us. That is Chris Fries. Chris, how you doing?
I'm good, guys. How you been?
We've been good, and it's been a long time since you've been on.
I
But
know.
we're going to talk about all sorts of stuff and all the stuff that you're doing and how to become successful at voiceover, which I guess is what this show is about. So stay tuned. Chris Fries is with us on VoiceOver Body Shop right now. VoiceOver Body Shop is brought to you by VoiceOverEssentials.com, the home of Harlan Hogan's signature products. Source Elements, the folks who bring you Source Connect. VOHeroes.com, become a hero to your clients with award-winning voiceover training. VoiceActor.com, your voiceover website ready in minutes. VoiceOver Extra, your daily resource for voiceover success. And by World Voices, the Industry Association of Freelance Voice Talent. And now, here's your hosts, Dan and George. Well, hello there. I'm Dan Leonard.
And I'm George Whittam.
And this is VoiceOver,
Body Shop,
or VOBS. Another week, another show.
Oh, wait, that's the wrong button. Sorry. I forgot we had Chris on. I should have had this one.
That works better. Okay. So anyway, my wife is like, "Are you doing your show tonight?" I'm like, "Yeah." And she goes, "I thought you just did it last week." No, it's been 2 weeks since we did the show. And she's like, "God, time just
Life
goes
moves
by."
pretty fast. If you don't
know.
stop and look around for a while, you might miss it.
Yeah. Well, we were looking around all weekend. We went to all of these natural gardens all over Southern California over the weekend. And after you see a couple of, sustainable gardens, that are all desert plants, it's like, all right, we saw this at the last house. Okay, they still have yellow lupins. Who knew there were yellow lupins?
I love going out in the nature and seeing the flowers right now. It's a great time to be outside in Southern California.
Yeah.
Mountain biking through the flowers, having flowers stuck in my beard, my handlebars. It's a lot of fun. It's a really pretty time to be outside.
It is. And we've got super bloom going on right now with all the rain we've had here.
Oh, yeah, it's happening. It's popping.
Exactly. Yeah. So I keep wondering, why has it been so cold here in Southern California? Because hell is frozen over, I guess.
We've had
Anyway.
a lot of rain.
Exactly. It is time to introduce our very, very special guest who's going to be talking with us for the next hour. Chris Fries is currently the voice of Dodge, Chevron, America's Best, and Kubota. They're the guys that make the little high lift things, and has recent national campaigns for spots for BF Goodrich, Blue Def. He'll have to tell us what that is. Credit Karma, Shields, Peak, TGI Fridays, and is or has recently voiced promos for History Channel, ESPN, Fox, and others, plus lots of video game performances, which we'll talk about. And it's time to welcome back to our show after a 7-year absence, Chris Fries. How you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for having me, guys.
It's great to have you back on. Yeah, we were looking. It's like we hadn't been on since we moved the show to Southern California.
Since God was a boy.
Crazy when you said we should have Chris on. I was like, didn't we just have? In 2015.
Whoosh. Time
No, I see Chris 4 times a year, usually at his place to do studio maintenance. So I see Chris all the time, but so you lose track of time. But it's great to see you here on the show. Thanks for coming.
Yeah. So
thrilled to be here.
All right. Well, let's get into the meat of the matter. Since you haven't been here for a while, and perhaps many in our audience are not familiar with you, even though they probably are, since telling all the different things that you've been doing. Tell us a little bit about your background and training and how you got into this crazy nutty business.
Yeah. No, I've been full-time voiceover since 2004, and it was a long journey. I started off in radio, was in a college radio station, tried to get a foothold, wanted to be an on-air personality in radio, worked in the promotions department and was a board operator at a local radio station and trying to get a foothold there, and never really got on air or anything like that. That was something that I was told repeatedly, oh, you don't really have what it takes. You don't really have the voice for it. You don't really have the sound for it, but you do good work in the promo department. And I'm like, oh, well, thanks. Maybe someday. I eventually got out of that line of work altogether, and in trying to find full-time radio work, went in municipal government, which was a soul-crushing job. For 10 years, detoured away from working with my voice or trying to. Eventually then was laid off from that job in 2004 and wanted to just take the plunge in voiceover. And I started taking classes, found out that, how to kind of get started in taking a bunch of group classes. I live in Orange County, California, which is about 45 miles outside of LA, Hollywood area. So it wasn't too bad to get into LA. For the classes at that time, all the classes were up in LA. So I'd go 2-3 times a week and just take those group classes with, the Voicecaster, Cal Manson, Elaine Craig, all the places up there that anybody in the Southern California area that's been in the business for a while is very familiar with. And just kept taking classes. That was the big thing, was the education side is learning the craft. It's one thing to be told that, oh, you got a good voice, you should do voiceover or whatever, or, you have a good speaking voice, but you have to learn how to act basically. And so I had to figure that out. I was lousy at first, but, got better and better, made a demo probably a little too soon. And but then still ended up getting, early representation, some regional agents. It took probably about 4 years from 2004 to 2008 of just training, working on those pay-to-play sites. Back then they were, not as strong as I guess they are now. I haven't worked in those pay-to-plays like the voices.com, Voice 123, those types of things. But I think it was helpful for me early in my career to do those and get some experience, because I didn't have representation back then. So how do you work if you don't have an agent? Because an agent gets you work. So these pay-to-plays kind of helped with that and get me some early experience. But then the regional agents started to kind of slowly trickle in a couple of jobs here and there, and eventually got LA representation and got my first national campaign in 2008. It was a Minute Maid commercial, and I was thrilled with it. It was aired on national network TV during American Idol back then was very, very popular, and the Beijing Olympics was on. It aired during that, and so friends are calling and saying, "Hey, you're on American Idol." I'm watching American Idol, but I taped it and I was fast forwarding, so I fast forwarded through my own debut commercial, which was so. They got to rewind.
I love it.
but
Don't
but
skip
yeah,
the commercials, folks.
that's
you
the
got to
moral
listen
of the
to
story.
those. Those are
Now, of
important.
course, if I ever see a commercial, especially if the family's in the family room with me, and it's always fast forwarding through, and I might recognize a Dodge spot or something that's airing. I'm like, "Oh, hey, let's go back," and they're like, "What are you stopping for?" I'm like, "Hey, my Dodge commercial." Come on, Dad, fast
Yeah,
forward.
no,
We've seen it before.
Eye rolling, eye
Thank you.
rolling.
I'm so my family's so proud of me. I can just it just warms my heart, the love that they have for what I do.
That's
But
great.
it warms my heart. I still get a thrill hearing myself. Although it is funny, if I hear myself in any application, a video game, a commercial, a promo, I always think, I could have done that better. I should have made the turn a little brighter, or sped up that tag a little bit more, emphasize that word. I'm constantly tinkering and never fully satisfied, which is I guess a burden and a blessing at the same time, because I'm kind of a perfectionist with that kind of thing. But yeah, it took a few years to get the traction going. 2008, then by about 2010, 2 more years before I was kind of making enough to consider myself a working actor. So, but yeah, it was a long road, and now I've been blessed beyond my wildest dreams. So it's been a good ride.
Yeah, well, I would say you're the perfect example of whose voice is that. We hear you in everything. I mean, what have we been
you're
hearing
a bit of
you?
a chameleon too, Chris.
Yeah, I mean, what have we heard you in lately? Like in 2023.
There's a few campaigns that are, and that's kind of the big thing with voice actors is especially if you do commercials or promos, and that is, it's not just the one-offs. I've got a lot of one-off commercials something that runs randomly in a regional part of the country, and then it's gone after a month or two. But to get the campaigns, to get that passive income, going is something that every voice actor really strives for. And I'm blessed with a few campaigns, one of which is Dodge, all the muscle cars for Dodge. I do America's Best. I'm the voice of the owl, that optometry line. And Chevron, the animated cars that are zipping around. I've been on that campaign for several years. Kubota, the tractors and utility vehicles and construction equipment and stuff like that. It's funny with the Kubota, and that there's a kind of I guess a signature sound that I might have, and everybody kind of has in voiceover. It's what you want to try to start. That's your kind of, what's your wheelhouse. And I think my area is well, I guess I can have some versatility and range to do something bright and friendly like Chevron. I tend to go back and get the bulk of my work in my signature sound, which is going to be that casual, blue collar, folksy kind of thing. That's so I do a lot of stuff with, say, Kubota, and a lot of agricultural spots and stuff. So I've got some friends that are in certain rural parts of the country, and they tell me they can't swing a dead cat without hearing one of my ag spots pop up. So I'm like, that's a wonderful analogy. Thank you.
Yeah, how much fun it is swinging dead cats around.
Swinging dead cats
You
in
know?
those spots. But yeah, the commercial campaigns have been really going well. There's a few others, and the promo work that I do for like History Channel, ESPN. Every season, like college football, I do the ESPN Game of the Week. I do a lot of stuff for Fox in that same realm too. So I guess in that same realm of doing agriculture spots, kind of the hand in hand of the blue collar is sports and stuff. So that seems to, and that's a lot of fun because I'm a big sports fan. So it's always a big, I get a big kick out of doing stuff like that. Because I'm a fan. So
that's important.
Anyway.
Yeah. If you're just joining us, our guest tonight is the one and only Chris Fries, who does just about, sounds like everything in voiceover that somebody should be able to do. Everybody specializes in one thing or another. You seem to be crossing the entire gamut of everything that's out there. And
Sure is easier to be enthusiastic about a product that you actually are enthusiastic about.
yeah,
True. And that's always the thing in voiceover where if I believe it, if I feel it, if I have an interest or a drive or something behind that, it's so much easier to be able to communicate that and to come across in those auditions as somebody that, hey, this guy seems to stand apart. Why? Because there's a passion behind it.
absolutely.
I can bring maybe I bring a little something different that kind of helps me stand out.
That's great. If you've got a question for Chris, and that's all of you out there, and I know there's a bunch of you watching right now, about his career or some advice or whatever it is you want to ask him, throw it in the chat room right now, whether you're in Facebook Live or you're in YouTube Live or maybe even on LinkedIn, because I know we're over there now too. We're everywhere. If you got a question, throw it in the chat room, and we will get to those questions in just a little bit. So we look forward to hearing from you. So with all of these different things that you're doing, you sort of answered this, but you be a little bit more specific. What's your favorite stuff to do?
I think, because of the passion of the interest in, like, say, the sports stuff, I just really get a kick out of that. And then also some of the video game stuff that I do. It's some of my harder work, but some of the titles I've been in, I think 3 or 4 of the Call of Duties, more recently Saints Row, Mass Effect, and gosh, I gotta look at some of them. After a while, it's like it's tough to kind of keep track. It's wonderful work, but it just becomes if you do a decent number of them, they start to kind of like, what am I this week? What kind of monster, alien, hero, villain have I become? But that's part of what the appeal is because that you really get to kind of stretch your creative legs a lot more. Say if I were to do something for one of my commercial campaigns, the America's Best the Owl is a fun campaign, and that's just the snarky owl, and that's just me being kind of a smartass, basically. So it's just that sarcastic kind of me. Dodge is that more intense me. But when I'm like doing Saints Row and I'm playing this psychotic killer or something like that in a game, that's just me just completely being a kid with an active imagination and a person that I'm not at all, but like this is my interpretation of that, and I just can have an active imagination. That's why I think some people talk about, I came from a radio background. Well, I tried to come from a radio background. I wasn't really not a radio guy. I didn't do theater or drama or come from TV or a film. So as far as how I developed my acting, of course, the classes and training and that, but I think where was my origin? It was me playing make-believe as a kid and just being really good at it, I guess. And now I can, as an adult, I'll play make-believe, and because it's being able to come up with a point of view, because make-believe is really just having a point of view that's just out there and unique and buying into it. So with voiceover, it just kind of allows me to continue to do that. And so whenever I'm doing a character or a role or something in a video game, a promo, and a commercial, it's just me with a certain point of view, feeling a certain way, instead of being like the specs would say, casual, natural, conversational. People, I think, get misled by following specs like that, and it's very easy to do so. Instead of being casual, natural, conversational, when am I casual, natural, conversational? George, when George comes over, 4 times a year, and we talk about family and hobbies and vacations and just life, and that's casual, natural, conversational. So George, I don't know if you realize this, many times you are my muse in my points of view for commercial reads. So
you're really thinking of like the guy that you just spoke to recently in your head, like, oh, George was here, I should talk to
A
George
lot of
in
times,
my.
and I'll use what they call, these lead-ins where I'll think about, casual, and I'll think about like a conversation where you go, hey George, yeah, when we went mountain biking the other day, and da 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 da, and it just kind of seamlessly flows into this
Yeah.
great point of view. So I'm being natural, conversational, and casual, but I'm not thinking about that. I'm just thinking about me and my friend George talking about biking or vacations or family. It makes it so much easier to make the copy believable because now I actually have my personality in it instead of me trying to be synthetic with a spec.
Right. But that sort of brings me to my next thing. You started mentioning, a partial list of the ones you've been doing. So you were doing voiceover all these years. When did you start finding yourself into video games, and how did you get cast for those?
Yeah, I was with AVO Talent Agency, and Sandy Schnarr. Actually, at the time, they were Sandy Schnarr Talent before she merged with Peter Verano and became AVO Talent. And she was my first major LA agent. And I didn't even consider myself to be a video game actor. I was thinking that the commercials, and she was like, your sound, maybe you got this kind of gruffness, masculine, whatever. I think you could do well in like some video games, maybe like some war movie or war games or sci-fi or whatever. And I'm like, all right, okay. So and my first two video games were kind of notable. One was I think it was Resistance 2, one of the Resistance series games, and I was soldier number 5 or something like that. It's a very big starring role. And the director was asking, we were doing these battle cries and death screams, and I didn't have any real background in this, so they were just like describing different things as far as like, okay, your acid is being poured over you. Give a pain reaction to that. Go. Like, well, let me see. The last time acid was poured over me, it kind of hurt. So, yeah, but it was. But there would be these. But interestingly enough, it solicited a specific sound, like, oh my God, that would sound like, and I would let out a blood curdling scream. Or then they'd say, okay, now your heart is being carved out with a spoon. What would that go? And I'm like, good Lord, this is a violent game. But anyway, but it would solicit these different, the reactions. So the director actually did a very good job. And I got these really unique, different death cries and pain reactions and stuff. And but one of the problems was just a few minutes into the session, I didn't really know how to yell properly. Now you're thinking, is there a certain way to actually yell and scream?
If you don't want to wear out your voice, yeah.
Well, where were you, Dan, when I?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was not aware of how this yelling on a constant high level for up to 4-hour sessions could wear out your voice. So after a couple of these blood curdling death cries, I literally blew out my voice, and it was just like yelling, ah,
Wow.
And all of a sudden, all I could talk was basically like this. It was mortifying. We limped through the session from that point forward. But I learned a valuable lesson in how to use my instrument properly. It didn't cost me too much because I thought, oh God, this is bad. The next game that I auditioned and booked was Call of Duty World at War. And I think it's the biggest, video game franchise, in the history of. And the really cool thing was I was third billing on as far as my character below Gary Oldman and Kiefer Sutherland. So I was like, this is pretty good company to be in.
I'd say.
So, but I ended up dying at level 4 or something like that. And then Kiefer Sutherland, who was my corporal underneath me, I was Sergeant Sullivan, and and then Kiefer Sutherland was the corporal that ended up taking over for me since I died and led on to the end of the game and whatever. But there was it was very complimentary to me how it was the Save Sergeant Sullivan campaign was online, and people were trying to find, is there a secret way to save? Because I opened these double doors, and this is set during World War II in the Pacific, and a Japanese soldier samurais me in the gut, and then that's the end of Sergeant Sullivan. So people kept on in these chat rooms and tried to find, is there a secret way to save Sergeant Sullivan?
Yeah, the cheat code in there somewhere.
Yeah, yeah, there was no secret way to save Sergeant Sullivan. That was it.
Did you ever channel any of your past careers into your work? I'm thinking of one particular job. That you
Good segue, George. Yeah, as a matter of fact, I did. During my quest in the early days of voiceover, so I said I got started in 2004, and I was spending a lot of money at that time, classes and equipment and stuff like that, not making virtually anything. So I needed to pick up some extra work because I had been in municipal government, working in parks and recreation of all things, and promoting and doing well in that career. But when I got laid off, I had no more revenue. My wife was the breadwinner, and I was the bread eater at that point. So I needed to help contribute to the household income, but I needed to be able to leave my days free because I'm auditioning, I'm going into LA, and I need to keep my days free. So I was thinking, and I didn't even want to do like the bartender route or the waiter route, because sometimes you'd still start at 5 or 6 and whatever. And then sometimes I'd be in LA until that time. And it just, I needed a graveyard shift is what I was wanting. So I was going to work at like a 7-Eleven or a gas station or something like that, just to, minimum wage. No, not too proud to beg. Basically, I'll do whatever and help contribute. A buddy of mine, he's a deputy, well now a sergeant in the LA County Sheriff's Department, and he was telling me, "Oh, you want a graveyard shift job? Oh my God, they're hiring as a jailer." Graveyard shift, and it's easy. You get benefits, the pay. Oh, it's way more. I mean, it's salaried. It's not an hourly job, so you get good money. And like I said, the benefits and everything, and no problem getting graveyard shift. They actually having trouble getting people to work the graveyard shift. So I, like a dope, I'm like, sounds like a good idea. Let's do it. So anyway, I go and become a jailer. And at the time, I'm in my mid 30s, and I had to go through like this police academy for jailers for like, I don't know, 2 or 3 months. And then, so yeah, I'm getting screamed at. And of course, this class of new jailers is, they're mostly in their young 20s, and I'm pops to everybody. I'm the grandpa, so I'm keeping up physically. I came in shape. I wanted to make sure that I was able to kind of hold my own, and I was. And so I worked as a jailer in downtown LA at Men's Central Jail for about a year or so, working the graveyard shift. And boy, the stories I could tell just based on that. But like a lot of my video games, that's rated M for mature. So
once again, we're talking with Chris Fries. If you got a question for Chris about anything to do with voiceover, because he's probably done it, throw it in the chat room right now, and we'll get to that question in just a little bit. So I hear that you're now coaching. Tell us a little bit why you're doing that and how you're doing that.
It happened innocently enough. I was as I started working then, so about 2008, I booked that first campaign. 2010, I'm starting to work pretty regular, and shortly after 2010, as bookings are just increasing and increasing, I get contacted by aspiring actors wanting to know how to get in the business. And at first it was just like, a little advice, send an email. And I was always shocked and surprised at how people, found me, knew about me or whatever. But they would find me, track me down, and know that I was in whatever video game or whatever commercial campaign, and they find me and ask me questions. So, and I was like more than happy to answer any of their questions. And it was just started off with emails, and then there was another colleague of mine that I was toward the end of taking all these group classes. I was towards the end of that period in my career of taking some of the group classes, and this other student was just starting. Nice guy, though. We hit it off real well, and he was just starting, and I was kind of graduating from that, so to speak, still taking private lessons and stuff from certain instructors, but not taking the group classes anymore. We still kept in touch, and he was wanting to continue to use me as a sounding board, as ask questions and stuff, and asked me if I could coach him. And I was like, oh, I'm not qualified to coach. I mean, I'm formulating my way of acting and the point of view and all those things. I'm like, I'll tell you what, no charge or anything. I'll let's read together. Let's read, and I'll give you some advice. I'll give you some direction for what it's worth. And so we did that a few times, and it seemed to come real natural to me. And like I said, I'd taken group classes from all the big casting directors and instructors, and then I took a bunch of private lessons from the likes of Joyce Castellanos, Maurice Tobias, Jody Gottlieb, Elaine Craig, Huck Liggett, a lot of the tops in the industry. So I took all this knowledge that I had gained from the group classes, from the individual private coaching, and then of course I'm starting to work. So directors are directing me in a certain way that I'm starting to understand what they want and how they want to get it. So all these little nuggets of information I'm just processing, and it kind of developed into my own way that this seems to be the most effective way for me to work and to improve and to give my best performance. So I'll just communicate that to, my friends. And so my first students were free lessons to basically my friends,
Mm-hmm.
that they seemed to really respond to it. It seemed to really work, and it seemed to come naturally to me. And then
What did they
as
say?
time
You teach best what you need to learn the
Learn
most. Is that what
most,
the
yeah.
saying is?
yeah, maybe. Yeah.
That's what I always hear. I mean,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and then I think it got to a point where I would get contacted again by somebody saying, "Hey, do you coach? I'm like, yeah." And I could say so I've at a very modest price back in the early days, I would coach, and it seemed to really work. And then it was just kind of a word of mouth thing. I still, to this point, don't actively market myself beyond mentioning it here, or people mentioning it or something. It's just a word of mouth, and it's kind of taken a life of its own. I keep a pretty small stable of students because of the fact that I'm still working very regularly, so it's I can't fill up my schedule with students and that. So but as students kind of they come and go and that, so we fit them in, and it kind of works. But it started off innocently enough, and then it just kind of took a life of its own. And I even speak every semester at the drama department over at Cal State Fullerton. They have me come in and be a guest speaker, and I talk about voiceover and stuff like that. It's a lot of fun. I really enjoy it. So
Yeah, it's a familiar story, and nothing's more fun than teaching. Once again, our guest is Chris Fries, and we're talking about all the stuff that he's doing. And again, if you've got a question, throw it in the chat room, and we're going to get to those in just a little bit. But we're going to take a quick break right now, and we'll be right back with Chris Fries right after this.
This is the Latin lover narrator from Jane the Virgin, Anthony Mendez, and you're enjoying Dan and George on The VoiceOver Body Shop.
Vacation time is just around the corner, around the world. For example, here's Australian voiceover pro Andrew Peters on vacation in London recording a commercial with his Portabooth Pro. Why is the Portabooth Pro gaining users worldwide? Well, just listen.
Winter's tough. The rain, the wind. cold.
Performers can capture great audio even in acoustically untreated spaces with the Portabooth Pro. Your microphone hears the sound of a human-sized sound booth at a fraction of the size and cost. The Pro accommodates large and long microphones, lengthy scripts, and e-reading devices. The Harlan Hogan Portabooth Pro is lined with Auralex Studio Foam. It's a professional quality sound studio that assembles in less than a minute. And its multi-pocketed carrying case makes it super easy to take your gear and your voice wherever you go. Order your Harlan Hogan Portabooth Pro now, just $389.99, only at voiceoveressentials.com.
If you haven't heard, myself and the crew over at my podcast, The Pro Audio Suite, have collaborated with Centrance to create our very own audio interface that's specifically designed for voiceover actors. It's called the Passport VO, and it is an amazing product that we want to bring to the world, but we cannot do it without reaching a special goal. We have to have pre-sold 100 units in order for Centrance to put this product into production. I'll tell you, there are just no audio interfaces that check every single box that's really important to a voiceover actor. And this thing also replaces multiple pieces of gear in a studio, like a mic mute switch, a mic switcher. So you have the ability to switch between two microphones at any time with the press of a button, each one of them at the right gain. It has two audio interfaces inside the box. So one is dedicated to recording and the other one dedicated to communications like Zoom and Source Connect. You can do playbacks. It's all built in. Head over to centrance.com/passportvo if you're interested in picking up one. Thanks for listening, everybody. This is George the Tech. I hope you have a great one.
Hey, it's David H. Lawrence, the 17th, and we talk a lot in this business about moving forward with our career, getting more information. We often don't talk about simply getting started. It can be one of the most immovable objects in our life, getting out of our own way and just simply taking the first step. And if you're watching this podcast, Voiceover Body Shop, for some tips on how to get started in voiceover, or to change something about your voiceover career, or to increase your knowledge in a certain area, check out VOHeroes.com's Getting Started in Voiceover. If you go to VOHeroes.com/start, you'll get all the information. It's really cheap, and I give you a lot to get started in the business, but you might also learn something if you've been in the voiceover business for a while. VOHeroes.com/start. That's VOHeroes.com/start.
This is Bill Ratner, and you're enjoying Voiceover Body Shop with Dan Leonard and George Whittam. VOBS.TV.
All right, we're back with Chris Fries. Hey, George, you know something? You suddenly learn how to read an entire spot all the way through without taking a break.
No, that is just really friggin' good editing. That's what that is. I always tell voice actors, you're going to be either good at one or probably both, but more than likely one or the other. You're going to be really good at reading scripts and writing them, or you're going to be really, really good at editing them. So if you want to be a voice actor, learn to be a voice actor. I am not. I am a producer, editor. I can edit. So anyway, thank you.
Try to do a 60-second read, and you're like at the last word, and like, oh shoot. Try to go back and edit that out.
That is just very clever editing.
Yeah, that's why you never do the video and the audio at the same time. It's like cover it with pictures. That's what usually works best. Anyway, we're talking with Chris Fries, and we're talking about all the stuff that he's doing, and we got lots of questions from our vast audience out there all across the fruited plain and other points on the planet. Why don't you start with the first one from Keela Ward? There's a name we haven't heard before.
Sure thing. I'm very interested in VO. I had a demo put together, and now I'm looking to start auditioning for audiobooks. I have my EIN. You need that. That's true to get paid by big jobs. Should I get an LLC? And what business entity is best in this line of work? Chris, I have my own answer. I think all three of us have our own
I have an
answers
answer for that one.
Chris, do you have any info on that to shed light on that?
I have become a corporation, and yeah, I am an employee of one, and it's worked out for me from a tax standpoint, as far as the expenses and that. So yeah, I am specifically a corporation. I think C corp, S corp. I got to talk to my accountant about that.
Yeah.
So anyway, but I am a corporation, and it has worked out well for me, and from a tax standpoint. But I cannot speak too intelligently on the beyond that. But it does work for me. Yeah.
It's certainly different for everybody, and you really
Yeah.
do need to talk to a CPA because
Yeah.
I have been doing business in California since 2004, and yet I'm still not an LLC. I keep being told it's not worth it for the amount that I'm earning yet. So it really does depend on your position, who your CPA is, and their attitude about things such as LLCs. Depends on the state you're in, of course, too,
Yeah.
because some states it's very expensive to organize, in others it's very cheap. Yeah, you definitely want to talk to a tax professional, but
Yeah,
I
and
wouldn't worry about that at the very, very beginning of your
Oh
career.
no, yeah.
yeah, that's
I
what I was
I
going to
didn't
say. Yeah.
I
Go
didn't
ahead.
work on something like that until I started to book about that 2010 time. So I got started, like I said, 2004, and I wasn't really making very much to have it be worth my while, and then I transitioned over once the revenue started to come in a little bit better.
Yeah, that makes sense. Greg Cooper asks, how did you decide to focus on specific genres like video games?
It wasn't something that I manually like, I want to do this. It was just where the bookings kind of led me to, and also a lot of direction and guidance from my agents. I didn't think that there were certain things where, like ADR, voice matching and stuff, that I started booking in those areas. My agent thought, you kind of sound like Thomas Hayden Church, or you kind of sound like Jeff Bridges. You should do this voice match for him, or this character actor. You sound like him, or this. I don't think I sound like any of those people, but I have booked at least a dozen different voice matches. And I don't consider myself to be good at impersonating any of these, and whenever I hear the end result, I did a couple of movies for Jeff Bridges. One of was R.I.P.D. with Ryan Reynolds and Jeff Bridges, and he has this. Jeff Bridges has this very slurry kind of Texas accent, and he kind of talks like this. And in R.I.P.D., he plays this old Western sheriff that comes back to, in the
I
afterlife.
watched it. That was a fun movie. I watched
It
it.
was a lot of fun. It was special effects and whatever.
That's
So
pretty
that
spot
was,
on.
and that was, I guess, what worked. And it was funny in the, I guess in post production, how some of that worked was some of his lines, some of his words were unintelligible, and they're in post production,
No.
and he's not. Yeah, oh, yeah.
Jeff,
And
unintelligent.
who knew? And Mr. Bridges was unavailable to do the pickups, so they need a voice match to step in, and so I was able to do that in certain parts of the movie and in the trailer. And for me, because you know your own voice. But for me, whenever I've watched that movie or seen the trailer or whatever, I know exactly where I am and where Jeff is, and when I play the movie or the scene for somebody else, and I'm like, can you hear it? Can you isn't it obvious? This is embarrassing. Oh my God. And they're like, what are you talking about? Where I start and he starts, and how you could totally hear the difference. He's like, where did you start and where did he start? And I couldn't tell. So they couldn't tell, but I could. So,
Well, you
but,
knew where you were.
and I think
Yeah.
we all know our own voice so well, so we can totally hear the difference, but other people couldn't. And I guess that's the point. So I didn't really hear it in myself, but yeah, like I said, I booked a lot of different in that area, and it was what led me to whatever video games, commercials, promos. I trained in really a lot of things and everything. I tried audiobooks. But for me, I think audiobooks are wonderful as far as I love listening to them, and I think the voice talents that do audiobooks are exceptionally talented people. I don't have the attention span and the endurance to do an audiobook. So it was an area where I tried, I couldn't, that didn't seem to be a comfort zone for me. I have a very short attention span, apparently. So I kind of stayed in my lane with some of the jobs, but I trained in a little bit of everything to see what I liked, what I was good at, what I could book. And from a revenue standpoint, I'm trying to make money here, and I don't want to limit myself to just one genre of voiceover when there are several genres available, and maybe I can book here and there. And so, I mean, I was led based on the belief that my agents had in me, and they thought, you sound like you could do this, or I think you could do that. I had no idea. And the belief that the agents had in me was critical, because if you're not at the right agency where they're just cattle calls and they're just churning out, here's the audition, whatever. I still get a lot of stuff where I've just given auditions, but at some of the top agencies, when you get to those A-level agencies, the CESDs, the Atlases, the DPNs, the SBVs, then you have to have somebody that's kind of in your corner, going to bat for you, pitching you for certain things, and then telling you, hey, I think you should do this and that. And it really helped my career, because I had no idea that I could do a lot of the things that I ended up booking, but it was purely because I had great agents behind me, starting with Sandy Schnarr, and now I've been at CESD now since 2009, and they've just taken wonderful care of me, and they go to bat for me daily and put me in the front of the line in a lot of opportunities, and changed my career for sure, for the best. But it's just where I was led, and so now most of my work is in commercial video games, promos, and then like in-show narration, documentaries and stuff for like History Channel and Discovery Channel, stuff like that.
All right. This one comes from Grace Newton saying, have you ever had a facepalm moment or made a disastrous mistake in your career? And then how did you handle it? We all learn from our mistakes, right, Chris?
Yeah, I'd say so. Well, I guess my blowing out my voice in my very first video game session would be definitely the facepalm moment. But I've managed to sidestep quite a few landmines. I took a lot of good advice from a lot of good people. My mentor, you guys know Scott Rummel, and now good dear friend of mine and stuff. He gave me a lot of guidance on the do's and don'ts and the things to worry about and the things not to worry about. I was always just so anxious about any I guess another palm to face moment would be calling my agent right after I'd sent an audition, asking, hey, how did they like it? Yeah, don't do that. They don't like that. And that was my first LA agent I had, is Osbrink Talent Agency. I'd sent an audition. I thought it was really good. But I called my agent, not even an email. I'd call and ask to speak to my, hey, I just wanted to call to say, I haven't heard about that audition that I just did yesterday afternoon. I know it's not even been 24 hours, but yeah. So what'd they think? Did they like it? Any feedback?
Yeah, you only do that once. But hey, at least you got through to him.
My agent sent me straight like, Chris, we'll call you. Don't call us. All right.
Julia Iotti, I think that's how you pronounce that, says, I've been hearing a lot of people having allergies, colds, or just feeling under the weather, including myself. I've been having a cough. What's your cure to keep your voice in top shape, especially with all the pollen that's out there right now here in Southern Cal?
Yeah. I don't have allergies, thank God. But yeah, getting sick is the worst. I drink a lot of water, and that helps, keep my, the cells in my body strong, fights off infection. Good. I've done things like I've added a steam shower to my. This was advice I got from an opera singer that I was at a cocktail party. We were chatting, and I don't know how we got into steam showers. No, we didn't literally get into a steam shower, but anyway, that topic came up, and he talked about how vocal health and how a steam shower is great. And so I had that, eventually did that. That was a nice, also being a corporation, I could expense the construction of a steam shower without, with the tax benefits from that. But yeah, I try to I wash my hands like a germaphobe, take the vitamins, and then when I do get sick, the first hint of a cold, and it actually does work, is those zinc tablets. I guess there's Coldies and Zicam. That
great
really does
stuff.
seem to help. But you got it, the very first sign of that cold. You start feeling that little tickle in the back of your throat, start pounding them like every 2 hours or something like that. That seems to really reduce the amount or the severity of the cold. Then if it hits me and it just knocks me on my butt, I get a steroid injection. Not recommended. Talk to your doctor, but it's because it can mess with your internal organs, the steroids and stuff. So you don't want to do that. As a matter of fact, my doctor does check my records and say you don't want to do this more than like once or twice a year. But for me, it's like my livelihood. I work literally. I'm blessed to work literally every day, and doing campaigns. When I have to do a pickup or a price change for Kubota, so they're keeping the body of the spot the same. So 90% of it was something I recorded months ago, and then we're updating the offer, offer good until June 30th. Well, now we're updating it to be October 30th or whatever. So I got to do a pickup of the offer. And if I have a cold, I'm going to sound different than I did when I first recorded it. So it's one thing
Offer
to,
starts Friday.
yeah. So
Offer starts Friday.
sounding consistent is critical. So I will do that. I will gargle with warm salt water. I will drink decaffeinated chamomile tea with lemon and manuka honey. I don't know if you guys, the manuka honey thing. It's, I guess, it's from Australia or New Zealand.
New Zealand.
It's got these like healing properties or something and it's like for a little jar about yay big, it's like, $40 or something like that. But it's pretty effective. And so all these little remedies and then rest. Don't use your voice. Try to get lots of sleep so you can recover. So your bodies and the cells within your body can kind of fight off the infection. And you get something as simple and you think it innocuous as just rest. No, it's not. It is very effective. So, but yeah, that's what I do.
All right. We got time for like one more question here. We got one from Bettina Lantorno, listening to us and watching us on YouTube. She says, "Hi, Chris. I'm so happy to listen about your work and journey in VO. I have a question for you, and this is the place to do it. I'm a medical interpreter in English, Spanish, and Italian, and for the past year studied with Pat Fraley. I've just begun to market myself, and my genres of choice are medical narration and NGOs in my 3 languages. You have any marketing advice?"
Wow. Specifically for that?
Those, maybe not.
Wow, that is niche stuff. But you know what? That's great. Because niches need to be filled, and if that's something that you have an interest in, there is a market for that. And it's funny, the marketing in general. First of all, Pat Fraley, awesome guy. I took some of my early classes from him, and he's so he's just one of the warmest human beings. He gave me a great piece of direction, telling me at the end of one of the classes. I said, "Hey, how did I do? How do you think I did?" Very, very early in my career. And he says, "Well, it's hard to tell. We just started working together, but you seem pretty good. But you took direction well." And I didn't really think that was much of a compliment when he said I took direction well. I'm like, "Well, you told me to read it faster. I read it faster. You told me to sound brighter. I sounded brighter." I didn't say that. I'm just thinking this, but I'm like, "Oh, thank you." But I'm thinking that's not much of a compliment. But I then in sessions, directors would tell me, "Oh, you did a really good job." When I asked you to take a second and a half off of a read, and I did it, then it was like, "Well, great, thanks." Or you were brighter, and I did it. And I started getting compliments more and more like that, and it seemed to mean something. Where taking direction is actually in and of itself a skill. not just being a voice actor, but being able to change and transition on the fly in a session and give the director what they want. Because I'm just step number 3 or 4 in a 15-step process for the producer of a spot or a video game. The last thing they need to worry about is getting through a voiceover session. They just want to get through it and stuff. So anyway, he was a great guy. But marketing in general, how I would establish whatever genre I was in. I would, anytime I would audition or get an email or get a contact or get a job, I would save those contacts, those emails, and then periodically, about 3-4 times a year, I would send an email to follow up. And now this list, and I do this a few times a year, this list is over 400 individual contacts, and I send out that many individual, not like the mass emails, because something personal, like sometimes I know a producer is a Dodger fan, so I'm like, hey, Dodgers are looking good. Hey, anyway, I just wanted to share my latest commercial spot or campaign. Have a good one, whatever. And more often than not, it's to my surprise, they'd come back to me and say, oh, hey, Chris, great to hear from you. Hey, it just so happens we have this audition that came across, and you'd be perfect for it. So it always seems to generate job opportunities. So in your niche, as you develop contacts in that genre, in that industry, maintain those contacts and maintain any relationship that you get. Don't just like, oh, great, nice to meet you, bye, and then hope. No, keep in touch and keep track of your communications, because they come back, and you're building. You're a business owner. And you got to build your business, and it's about who you know, not necessarily what you know.
Yeah, what we used to call a tickler file in the life insurance business. Anyway, Chris, it is a pleasure to talk with you again. It's been quite a while, and thank you so much for joining us tonight and letting us know all these important things about your amazing career so far. So good luck in the future.
Oh, hey, thanks, guys. Always a pleasure. And we'll see you in another 8 years or so, yeah?
Yeah, maybe not quite that long.
All right.
I'll see you in the summer, Chris.
Right.
That's right. Yes.
Okay. Chris Fries, our guest tonight. All right, George and I'll be right back to wrap these things up and re-rack it for Tech Talk right after this.
You're still watching VLBS?
Your dynamic voiceover career requires extra resources to keep moving ahead. There's one place where you can explore everything the voiceover industry has to offer. That place is voiceoverextra.com. Whether you're just exploring a voiceover career or a seasoned veteran ready to reach that next professional level, stay in touch with market trends, coaching, products, and services while avoiding scams and other pitfalls. VoiceOver Extra has hundreds of articles, free resources, and training that will save you time and help you succeed. Learn from the most respected talents, coaches, and industry insiders when you join the online sessions, bringing you the most current information on topics like audiobooks, auditioning, home studio setup and equipment, marketing, performance techniques, and much more. It's time to hit your one-stop daily resource for voiceover success. Sign up for a free subscription to newsletters and reports. It's all here at voiceoverextra.com. That's voiceoverextra.com.
Well, here's something I don't get a chance to do much, and that's a live spot, like George does every week. But anyway, one of the most important things you can do when you start off in voiceovers, you got to have a website. But early on, when people are like trying to do websites, some people are good at HTML and other people can do all sorts of stuff or use some sort of system and make their own website. But sometimes those are too detailed. And the fact of the matter is when you're trying to start in voiceover and you want to have a website, because you got to have a website, what you really need to do is go on over to a new sponsor, even though they're an old sponsor. You remember voiceactorwebsites.com? Well, now we have voiceactor.com. Voiceactor.com is a great website. It's templated websites. So all you have to do is go in there and find a template that works for you, and you can customize it. And it can be free to start. So all you have to do is go over to voiceactor.com. They create websites that are mobile responsive, easy to use. You can edit it yourself, as I said, and it's built for voice actors by voice actors. So go on over to voiceactor.com, and what are you going to get? You're going to get a really great website really fast. And George and I have done it. We were able to do websites for our kids in 10 minutes or less. So go on over to voiceactorwebsites.com.
We are the World Voices Organization,
also known as WOVO. We're the not-for-profit industry association of freelance voice talent. Voiceover is a complex entrepreneurial business.
WOVO is there to promote the professional nature of voice work to the public, to those already established in their voiceover practice,
and to those who want to pursue voiceover as a career.
Membership benefits include
a supportive and creative community,
a profile and demos on voiceover.biz, our searchable directory of vetted professional voice talent,
our exclusive demo player for your personal website,
our mentoring program, business resources, and our video library,
our annual WOVOCon conference, a fun and educational weekend with other members with the chance to learn and network,
webinars and great speakers, and weekly social chats with other members around the world.
If your world is voiceover,
make WOVO part of it. World Voices Organization.
We speak
for those
who speak for a living.
Yeah, hi, this is Carlos Alazraqui, the voice of Rocco, and you're watching VoiceOver Body Shop.
Yes, you are. And we're great having Chris on. He just has great stories, and we could probably have him on for another 3 or 4 hours and keep going with that.
Yeah. Salt of the earth, nicest guy ever, and it's great to see nice guys win when they do the right things. And Chris is just, it's been awesome. I mean, I've been watching his career. When I first helped him with his very first vocal booth, and then he said, I'm ready to build something custom in 2010. I mean, it's just been an amazing thing to watch. I'm proud of him. Good guy.
Next week on this very show, or you could hang out and watch live, we've got Tech Talk number 101, which is going to be fabulous because we have all sorts of cool stuff to show you and to talk about. The week after that, the one and only Rebecca Davis will be joining us. Just a wonderful lady
Rebecca.
and a very successful voice actor. And then after the week, about 2 weeks later, Dave Walsh, one of the best coaches in voiceover. Just
Now they're returning our calls.
Yeah, no, it's like, hey, okay, I'm done with all this
The
stuff.
spring travel season is worn down. They have more time now.
Yeah.
Great to have them all here.
Yeah, you've got a webinar coming up?
Boy, we do. We do a lot of them. And so the one coming up this go around is Reaper. First time that we are teaching a Reaper class. Well, let's say we, not me. I'm not teaching it. I'm not a Reaper expert. I'm bringing one in. His name is Steven Gonzalez. He is a real Reaper expert. So we have a beginner class on the 3 p.m. The following Tuesday after the show. That would be the 18th. And then the week after would be the advanced version for people that feel like they're already working efficiently in Reaper but want to learn a lot of new power user tricks. So yeah, if you're interested in that, head over to georgethe.tech, go to the webinars page, and use VOBS Fan 10 to get 10% off on really anything on georgethe.tech, including the webinars.
All right. And we have our weekly donors list, people who have been sending us donations to keep this show just amazing and technologically perfect most of the time. Anyway, Grace Newton,
Robert Leadham,
Steve Chandler,
Casey Clack,
Jonathan Grant,
Thomas Pinto,
Greg Thomas,
A Doctor Voice,
Antland Productions,
Martha Kahn,
949 Designs,
Christopher Epperson,
Sarah Borges,
Philip Sapir,
Brian Page,
Patty Gibbons,
Rob Ryder, Raider,
Shauna Pennington Baird,
Don Griffith,
Trey Mosley,
Diana Birdsall, and Sandra
Manwiller.
Manwiller.
I love how we
Sandra-
say her name differently every time. I just can't. I don't know what's going on with that. Anyway.
Also, join our mailing list. It's starting to really grow because you guys are watching the show and you want to know what's going on. So go over to our website, vobs.tv, and click on Become a Subscriber, I think is what it says on the website. We need to thank our sponsors as well, like Harlan Hogan's VoiceOver Essentials,
VoiceOver Extra,
Source Elements,
VOHeroes.com,
VoiceActor.com, and World Voices, the industry association of freelance voice talent. Thanks to Jeff Holman for getting all the stuff together in the chat room. Appreciate it, Jeff. Thanks. And, of course, Sue Merlino, who's sitting there pushing all the buttons and making it look like this is an actual TV show. So we appreciate that. And, of course, Lee Penny for being Lee Penny. Well, we keep trying to bring you the best people in the business, and we're going to keep doing that for as long as we can keep doing it. And but the bottom line in voiceover is it's not an easy business. But when it comes to being a good voice actor and having good audio, if it sounds good,
it is good.
I'm Dan Leonard.
And I'm George Whittam.
And this is Voiceover
Body Shop.
Or VOBS. Stay tuned for Tech Talk Live if you're watching us live and get to ask your questions. We'll see you next week. Have a good one, everybody.
Bye.
All right. Man, he could go on, and that would be fabulous. All righty. Let's see here. Okay, keep that there. Okay, it's time for Tech Talk, everybody. If you got a question for us, throw it in the chat room. It'll be great because we love having questions about voiceover tech because, hey, that's what George and I do. Anyway, all right, so we're racked up and ready to roll there, Sue. All right, here comes Tech Talk right now. Hey, it's time for Voiceover Body Shop Tech Talk. Tech Talk. And it's Tech Talk number 101. We've been doing it for, God, there's so much information. Everything you would ever want to learn about how to get a good voiceover studio is in every one of those 101 episodes. Well, the 100 we've done so far, anyway. And we'll come up with more. But we got lots of cool stuff to talk about tonight. George, we've got our presentation from NAMM, even though I wasn't there, but you were there, but we were both sort of there. We'll be getting that in a little bit. And we're going to talk about, don't be intimidated by all this stuff. And, of course, your questions, so throw them in the chat room. If you've got any question about home voiceover studio technology, that's the place to go and ask it right now. How often do you get the chance to ask those questions to us personally? Well, sort of personally. Anyway, it's time for Voiceover Body Shop Tech Talk right now. Voiceover Body Shop Tech Talk is brought to you by VoiceOverEssentials.com, the home of Harlan Hogan's signature products. Source Elements, the folks who bring you Source Connect. VOHeroes.com, become a hero to your clients with award-winning voiceover training. VoiceActor.com, your voiceover website ready in minutes. VoiceOver Extra, your daily resource for voiceover success. And by World Voices, the industry association of freelance voice talent. And now, here's your hosts, Dan and George. Well, hello there, if you haven't figured it out by now. I'm Dan Leonard.
And I'm George Whittam.
And this is Voiceover Body Shop Tech Talk. Tech Talk.
Yeah.
The only thing.
No, not that one. That one. Tech Talk. Okay. All right. Enough radio crap. Okay. Anyway, we're here to help you with your home voiceover studio. That's what we do. You know, I'm a full-time voice actor, and I work on people's home voiceover studios all over the place, all over the world. I've created studios in Egypt where they don't use carpeting. It's like all tile walls. How do you create a home voiceover studio in a place like that? And it's great doing house calls and realizing that every room is different. Mm-hmm. Every voice is different. And everybody thinks, oh, I got to get the right microphone for my voice. Well, we'll talk about that. The fact of the matter is you really need to talk to somebody who actually knows everything about it and how to create the right voiceover studio for you, because one size does not fit all in this amazing business. We've got to custom design your space. We could call it a home voiceover studio, when in reality, in most cases, it's a closet full of clothes, which sounds better than some of the professional studios here in LA and New York and Dallas and places like that. And that's what we do, is we figure out how to get that sound right. To me, everything is physical. There's technology. There's certain filters you may need to use, and sometimes building a stack to get things in a certain way, especially for audiobooks and stuff. But you've got to learn how to physically set up a studio, and that's what George and I do. And George builds these voiceover palaces, and if you want to build yourself a voiceover palace, where do they go?
Go to georgethe.tech. There's a thing on the site about designing studios, and I can help you with that. Yeah, whether it's a palace or just making the best sounding booth you can with the budget you've got for a room in your apartment, I can help you out. And there's all sorts of stuff on that site. There's so many ways we can help you. Our team of tech support folk are standing by, literally. We've got folks who are available for booking almost around the clock, and some even available on extremely short notice if you call our tech support hotline at 424-226-8528 and press number 9, and you will literally be patched to a live human being who can help you in a pinch. And to last week, we had 2 people who avail us of that service. So there's a lot of ways we can help you. So please do check out georgethe.tech. And my partner over there, he's got his own site, and he's got his own way of helping you out over at
homevoiceoverstudio.com. It's always fun when my beeper goes off. We're technologically advanced. We've got beepers now. It's just we get a text up or
It would
something.
be kind of nice sometimes to bring back the beeper.
I know. Anyway, homevoiceoverstudio.com is where you can find me. Easy to contact me there. If you've got a problem with your home voiceover studio, or if there's something you don't understand, or you are starting from scratch, I can get you going very, very quickly. And we're going to talk a little bit later in the show about not being intimidated by this stuff. One of the ways you do that is by talking to somebody who actually knows what they're doing. And if you go over to homevoiceoverstudio.com, you will see all the different services that I offer. But the one that everybody seems to love, I keep wondering, was this a really smart idea? Or are people going to get disgusted by this? But no, I have the specimen collection cup right there. that looks more like goldfish food. Anyway, go over there for $25. I will give you a thorough analysis of your audio to make sure. Oh, you do have a specimen collection. I'm not going to ask what you're doing with that. But just click on there, follow the instructions to a T, and try to do your audio raw. I don't want to hear how you're processing it, because as George and I will tell you, some people are destroying their audio because they want it to sound the way they want it to sound. And of course, it's important to realize that you don't hire you.
That's right.
And we want to make sure that you sound as good as everybody else, if not better.
Whistle.
Which stands for what it's supposed to sound like. And we know what that is. Anyway, we got some video now from NAMM, so lead us into it, Mr. Whittam.
Yeah, so I was at the NAMM trade show. People wondering to know what the heck that is. That's the National Association of Music Merchants, and really it's a huge trade show where you'll see a lot of things completely irrelevant to voiceover and a few things that are, and that's why I go. It's fun. It's not that far away. It's a drive down the road, and I was able to secure us a little media center where I was able to sit down and chat with Dan remotely, and here is our little conversation.
Meantime, if anybody's got a question for us about their home studio or any of the new gear at NAMM or any of this kind of stuff, throw it in the chat room. I know you're all there.
Yeah, I'll grab Timothy's question, but after what I'm doing here is I'm at this trade show, which on the surface has absolutely nothing to do with voiceover. It's called the National Association of Music Merchants. Listen to that noise floor. And the reason I'm here is because I've been coming to the show since 2009 or 8. And what I found was, well, Pro Audio lives here. So There's a tremendous amount of pro audio things happening at this show. A lot of microphones, acoustic treatment, audio interfaces, preamps, mixers. There's a lot of gear happening at this show, and that's why I come. It's fun. I'm still a techie at heart. I'm still an engineer at heart. I love this stuff, and that's why I come. I hope to discover some new cool tech, which I have. I discovered the Stage Ninja, what's it called? The Scorpion, the bendy mic arm, with the A clamp. I saw that here the first time. I saw GIK Acoustics here the first time. I've seen all these kind of products that launched here, and it's just, that's why I'm here. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Timothy said, where can we find that research, George? Me too, Ed, about mic placement within a booth. Well, that research hasn't really been done yet. He knows how to map rooms, but now I have to basically consult with him and hire him to start mapping rooms for voiceover booths, so the really small booths, because he hasn't been mapping out ISO booths for VO yet. He's been doing larger rooms, but when I talked to him last year, he said that it was something that he could help with. So I had a little talk with him on Zoom once. He's in France. He's a really good dude. And the bottom line is, when he's ready, I just have to hire him. so I gotta hire him to do it. So it'll cost some money, but at some point, hope to do that. That should be cool.
Yeah, it's when it comes to mic placement and all that, there are some basic rules that we've showed everybody about the rule of three and not having the mic directly in front of you, so you have plosives and things like that. I mean, if you've got it like here, the thing is what we'll usually do is we'll move it around in your booth and try and find the sweet spot in there, and it's usually not a big variation. A lot of times it has to do with the height of the mic or where you're sitting and that sort of thing. If you stand up and sit down,
if you're too close to the ceiling, you get bass reflex off the ceiling because there's something called a pressure zone. That's where the low end builds up and collects and gets trapped up at the ceiling. Well, those pressure zones happen at every surface, the ceiling and the four walls and the floor. But the ceiling ends up being the one that you forget about because you're not looking at it. It's right above you. And that's really one of the worst spots, right? So sitting down or at least lowering you and your mic so that you're on a leaning stool or a bar stool might be enough to make a considerable difference in the sound. So, so that's what it's going to be all about. Is like, instead of doing a lot of guesswork, my hope is to say, your room is X dimensions. Oh, okay. Well, if you put the microphone in one of these 5 locations, the mic will be in a null spot, and it won't pick up those room modes. So that's the kind of thing that I'm looking into figuring out on a more scientific level. It's not that hard to do it by ear, and we do it. Just thought it'd be cool to have a little more science behind it. So we'll see what happens with that.
Yeah. Well, we got a lot of people watching live here, and once again, George is at the NAMM show, which stands for the National Association of Music Merchandisers. Did I get that right?
Yeah, music merchants, exactly. And it's really intended for it's intended for music stores, really. This is where the ma and pa music stores of the world, like I used to work for in Westchester. Shout out to Taylor's Music of Westchester, established in 1929. And my dad is consulting for them, helping them revamp their retail right now, which is pretty cool. But it's where store owners and buyers for these stores would go and see product, play the guitars, play the instruments, test them out, see what they like, and then write a big check to that vendor and order the equipment for that year. That's traditionally what the NAMM show was all about. Things have changed a lot in the last few years, and that kind of marketplace for the vendors, that's kind of cooled down a bit. And now there's a lot more, it's a little more consumer electronics like now. There's a lot more consumers here. Saturdays, when everybody's off work, it's a friggin' freak show. I mean, it goes off. I've seen people wearing vestigial dragon tails. They're walking around. I've seen people with holes cut in their outfits in the weirdest places. It is fascinating because everybody is here. There's a lot of musicians, a lot of pro audio producers. celebrity musicians here doing autographs, signing, meeting their fans. There are incredible studio musicians here who are just here to play the instruments for those vendors. So they're hanging out at the booth and shedding and playing the latest guitars or playing the latest drums or whatever. So that's the kind of stuff that happens here. But what's interesting is the vendors that are not here. I used to come here and I used to see Neumann Sennheiser every single year. Big, amazing booth, a stage where they had musicians playing and performing. Not here anymore.
They're not doing the big shows anymore, from what I hear.
And from what I've been told from them, I don't think I'm saying anything out of school here, but they find it's more valuable to do smaller events, some things that they'll produce themselves, things like VO Atlanta, things like trade shows that are niche trade shows. They feel that that's more valuable because now these shows are sort of a catch-all. And frankly, what I've been told by one vendor was they get tired of not voiceover. They get tired of another musician walking up to them and going, "I'm so-and-so, I play this instrument, and I'm looking to get an endorsement deal from your product so I can get one for free." And that's kind of what they're dealing with over and over and over, just one after another. They basically are being solicited by musicians wanting to get free stuff. It's kind of, and so they're like, "Why are we doing this?" So anyway.
Yeah. We got a couple of questions. And again, if you've got a question, just throw it in the chat room, whether you're in Facebook or in YouTube. And I know there's a lot of people in YouTube. Just type it in the chat room that's there, and we'll get to the question. We got one here from TD Nightfall, who says, "Have you come upon the new NEV interface?"
I will. They are definitely here. I saw it here last year, actually. So it's been out for a year. So I will pick it up. I will fondle it. I will turn the knobs. And that's about it. That's about all I'll probably get to do with it. But for those that don't know, the new Neve audio interface, I think it's called the 88 something, 88R, 88R, or R88, something like that. It's basically Neve saying, here is the best preamp we've ever made. Here's the same preamp that you're going to get in one of our big mixing consoles, but now it's inside a little box with a USB jack where you can plug it right into your computer. It's got transformers, so those that know what those are for, what and why they might like them, they're already in there. That gives a little bit of fatness and a little bit of an edge to the sound. But at the end of the day, it's just a very, very expensive Scarlett 2i2.
And why spend that much money on something that it's not going to change the way you read copy?
It's a $1,300 Scarlett 2i2.
Yikes.
I would never tell them that into their face. But that really is kind of what it is. Yes, it has a lot of gain. Yes, it's got very, very high quality circuitry. Yes, it's clean. But functionally, from terms of like how it can help you in your home studio, that's really about it. It's just a really high quality preamp with a USB jack on it. Whereas like the thing I'm working on, the Passport VO, is an extremely useful, functional device that will make your studio life easier, right? Different idea behind why you would buy a new audio interface. So I'll still give you my thoughts if I see it.
Yep. Next question from Jonathan Grant. Sweetwater's been pushing Jumpers brand XLR cables and claims that they're comparable to Mogami Gold. Well, how do you determine that? Do you guys know anything about these cables? They're made in Detroit. Well, at least they roll well.
Well, I mean, as far as I know, there's literally only a handful of companies that make the actual copper core that goes inside the cable, right?
Right.
There's Mogami, there's one that starts with a C, there's Belden, and then the rest is all probably mass-produced Chinese cable, right? I could be wrong about that. I don't know if Jumpers is a company that does their own cable fabrication so that you're buying something uniquely Jumpers. I don't know. What do I look for in a cable? I look for a good quality Neutrik microphone connector on one end. I look for a decent, thick insulation that's not too thin, flimsy. I look for sometimes Star Quad, which is a buzzword, but Star Quad mic cables can isolate a little bit better when you have really bad RFI. Like if you have a radio station, if you live right next to the CN tower,
A mic cable with star quad shielding will do a lot better.
Wow.
Those are things I look for. You don't need to spend Mogami Gold prices to get those things. So
Exactly.
anyway, I'll check it out. If I see jumpers here, I'll see what they're doing. Yeah, if you're spending more than $50 on a 10-foot mic cable, you're probably overspending. But I also wouldn't buy the house brand stuff I wouldn't buy Livewire. I wouldn't buy the house brand cables either. I would stay away from Hosa for your mic cable. Not that it's going to fail you, but if you're going to have one mic cable, which most of you need a mic cable, spend a little bit of money on it. Go with the Mogami grade wires and kind of in that price point. So anyway, well, I'll check it out and see if I see them around.
Okay. Next one from
I was actually doing a little research on that because I didn't see jumpers and I didn't know anything about jumpers. It's a new company to me. And they do make a standard 3-conductor microphone cable. They make a star quad cable, as I was just describing. I don't know what separates them from Mogami or the others. Maybe they can compete on price. But it's got all the basic important things, which is oxygen-free copper, a good quality Neutrik microphone connector. It checks all the basic boxes. So can't say why jumpers would be any worse than any other good quality handmade microphone cable. So that one was new to me. We had a lot to talk about, and there was a lot more to talk about. In fact, the majority of the time that we were in that set talking was actually with Booth Junkie Mike Delgaudio. And that was a lot of fun. It was a long interview. And what we decided to do was to actually put that up on the site, on the website. We'll have it up on our YouTube and social media, so you guys can check that replay out of that interview. It's about 37 minutes long, and you guys can consume what Mike had to say. As far as I know, he was his first NAMM. He had never been before, and he was just there to absorb. And also, he had a lot of vendor relationship meetings to make while he was there, because he has a lot of vendor relationships. I told him in advance, like, I'm not going to make a lot of vendor relationship meetings. I want to just be free to roam. And so I made no meetings at all this year. I didn't make any promises. I just roamed the halls and took my time and had a lot of conversations, not on camera, with acoustics companies. I talked to this company, PSI, out of Switzerland, and talked to one of their engineers about their new active bass trap technology. Because I have one
active bass trap technology.
Active bass trap technology.
Define active bass trap.
It's maybe what you might think if you think of active, meaning like it takes whatever sound it hears, and when it hears a sound that's a resonating frequency, its own microphone hears that frequency, then it creates a sound wave that's essentially out of phase with those frequencies and helps to cancel them out.
Oh, sort of like noise-canceling headphones.
It's kind of like big, ginormous noise-canceling headphones for an entire room. It only works below 150 hertz, and what he had told me was that's because as you go higher in frequency, the system would have to be much faster at counteracting those higher frequencies. And there's a point where the system, the software and the DSP and everything isn't quick enough to respond as you go higher and higher and higher. That's why your noise canceling headphones that you use aren't going to cancel out speech and really much other high frequency sounds. They're awesome at rumble and awesome on the airplane. They certainly make your life much more comfortable on a plane. But really, if you want the best noise canceling possible, you need a really good tight, airtight seal, like on the AirPod Pros and some of the other Bluetooth earbuds that have noise canceling. They have to have an airtight seal, a silicone seal. And then the rest of the noise canceling is actually handling the low frequency, and that's the active part. So anyway, I have one of these units. I actually got one to borrow, not at the show, but directly from my vendor rep at Westlake Pro. And I need to get my tests finished because I've had it for about a month. I've been dragging my feet on this, and this is no small deal. This thing is made in Switzerland. They sell for $2,500. So I have to show that this thing is actually useful in a voiceover booth or not. I see the main pro being that if you're really in a small booth and no matter what you do, you still have some low end resonances. This will help correct that. Is it worth it? I'm not really so sure. If you have a larger room that you do production and you do mixing and sound of mix downs, then maybe it makes more sense, because getting a larger room to control the low end below, say, 60, 50 hertz can be extremely difficult and costly, in which case an active bass trap might be helpful. But anyway, it was just fun getting to talk not just to some sales reps, but to the actual engineers who collaborate and build these products. So I really enjoyed that. So anyway, stay tuned. We're going to have that package up that nice interview we had with Mike Del Gaudio, the Booth Junkie, shortly.
Yeah, I will try and get that up there when we're done with this.
Cool.
I've gone to NAMM with you a couple of times. This time I decided not to, because I can't walk that much.
It's a lot of walking.
It's a lot of walking, and it is completely overwhelming.
Yeah,
especially when you're in the music area, because it's all music.
Yeah, you could hear the room tone was kind of mind-boggling. It's worse when we had Mike on, because then we had 2 open mics.
Yeah.
So it was really pretty intense.
Yeah. Well, once the band stopped playing, I could hear you pretty clear. Anyway,
and by the way, there's going to be all the videos that maybe you thought you were going to see of me walking around. They do exist. I will be releasing them on the George the Tech YouTube channel over the course of the next week as I get them edited and posted. So stay tuned for that. For people that want to see me talk to these vendor reps about their wares, that will be available.
Yeah. And if you have a question right now, because we're live here and we can take your questions, all you have to do is throw them in the chat room right now in Facebook Live or YouTube Live or on LinkedIn. You can ask any question you want about the home voiceover studio problem you're having, or equipment, or stuff that you want to buy, and we're going to tell you, now you don't need that. Or, yeah, you're definitely going to need that.
You probably don't need an active bass trap, but
you just can't wait to try it, though, right?
I mean, it's pretty cool to be loaned some pretty expensive esoteric stuff and get time to play around with it.
Yeah.
That is one of the more fun things that I get to do. But Dan, you're here to tell us a little bit about the opposite of active bass traps, which is don't be intimidated by overly expensive, complex technology.
Yeah. Now, remember, this show is totally unscripted. I'm like, all right, I'm going to pick something to talk about. And one of the things that I find from a lot of people who contact me is they're like, I'm an anti-tech nerd. I don't understand tech. I'm intimidated by all this.
I'm Amish.
In which case, you're in the wrong business. It's an interesting thought there. The fact of the matter is, you should not be intimidated by it. Here's how I straighten it out with most people, and they all go, oh, now I get it. Sort of like my son Jacob, who's like, how does this work? Well, you just do this and you do that. Oh, I've been going all the way around and trying to do it. I'm like, no, just do it that way. Here's how you have to understand recording on a computer. Forget that it's a computer. It's called a computer, but what it really is a data and information exchange device that does all sorts of stuff with ones and zeros. But what it does is, it's taking the analog signal from your microphone and turning it into the ones and zeros that your computer understands, and turns into the graphic representation of what your waveform looks like. And so you can edit it and manipulate it. So change your whole, as Tony Robbins would say, we're going to reframe this. And the way you reframe it is by telling yourself, this is not a computer. This is a cassette recorder. Play, stop, record, rewind. That's all it is. Forget about all of this tech stuff that people like. Yeah, you got to have this mic, and you got to have this channel strip, and you got to have this, that, the other thing, and all these other things, and you got to have these headphones, and you got to have this, and this makes me sound great, so you should use it too. And the fact of the matter is, again, as we said at the top of the show, You look like one of those Batman characters.
I need more headphones.
Yeah, more headphones. It's amazing how much. What I've got these headphones. Does that make a difference in what I sound like? Well, not to anybody
They only make
else.
a difference. They only make a difference in what you sound like to you. That's where they make a difference.
Right. So the real thing here is that I wanted to get to is don't be intimidated by the tech. We can recommend stuff to you that is easy to understand, and what we want you to be able to do is get your studio set up, you hit record, and you become a voice actor and stop worrying about being an engineer. Yes, is there some stuff that you need to understand about formats and sending files to people and stuff like that? If you start to look beyond that, then you are an audio geek. And the fact of the matter is audio geeks don't hire voice talent. Producers do. And as George and I talk to these guys all the time, they are not audio geeks. They'd like to think they are. But the fact of the matter is most of them are as intimidated by the technology as you are. And you can see that by some of the specs you're sent where they say, yes, we want broadcast quality. Not explaining to you what broadcast quality means. And for those of you who know me, broadcast quality to me means it doesn't sound bad. There's nothing that is distracting the listener from your voice, which is the only thing that they need to hear. They don't want to hear background noise. They don't want to hear electronic noise from the fact that you're using a lousy microphone or a lousy interface and you're cranking it all the way and you're getting that sound of a far-off waterfall. Did you get that, George? Could you hear that in your headphone? Okay, good.
Yeah.
So don't be intimidated. If you want help with getting this stuff done, talk to George or I and watch our show and understand that it is not technologically way over your head. It's hit record and go, and we're going to make it as simple as possible. All right, we got a few questions from our wonderful audience that is out there, and if you've got one, throw it in the chat room right now in Facebook Live or in YouTube Live, or I don't know if you can do it in LinkedIn if you're watching on LinkedIn.
works too.
So you can send us your questions right now about anything. So except marriage advice. Although I could probably give you a little bit about that too. I've been married 30 years. I must be doing something right. Mm-hmm. Anyway, we'll be right back and get to those questions right after this, so don't go away.
This is Ariana Ratner, and you're enjoying VoiceOver Body Shop with Dan Leonard and George Whittam. VOBS.TV.
Vacation time is just around the corner, around the world. For example, here's Australian voiceover pro Andrew Peters on vacation in London recording a commercial with his Portabooth Pro. Why is the Portabooth Pro gaining users worldwide? Well, just listen.
Winter's tough. The rain, the wind, the cold.
Performers can capture great audio even in acoustically untreated spaces with the Portabooth Pro. Your microphone hears the sound of a human-sized sound booth at a fraction of the size and cost. The Pro accommodates large and long microphones, lengthy scripts, and e-reading devices. The Harlan Hogan Portabooth Pro is lined with Auralex Studio Foam. It's a professional quality sound studio that assembles in less than a minute. And its multi-pocketed carrying case makes it super easy to take your gear and your voice wherever you go. Order your Harlan Hogan Portabooth Pro now, just $389.99. Only at voiceoveressentials.com.
If you haven't heard, myself and the crew over at my podcast, The Pro Audio Suite, have collaborated with Centrance to create our very own audio interface that's specifically designed for voiceover actors. It's called the Passport VO, and it is an amazing product that we want to bring to the world, but we cannot do it without reaching a special goal. We have to have pre-sold 100 units in order for Centrance to put this product into production. I'll tell you, there are just no audio interfaces that check every single box that's really important to a voiceover actor. And this thing also replaces multiple pieces of gear in a studio, like a mic mute switch, a mic switcher. So you have the ability to switch between two microphones at any time with the press of a button, each one of them at the right gain. It has two audio interfaces inside the box. So one is dedicated to recording and the other one dedicated to communications like Zoom and Source Connect. You can do playbacks, it's all built in. head over to centrance.com/passportvo if you're interested in picking up one. Thanks for listening, everybody. This is George the Tech. I hope you have a great one.
Hey, it's David H. Lawrence, the 17th, and we talk a lot in this business about moving forward with our career, getting more information. We often don't talk about simply getting started. It can be one of the most immovable objects in our life, getting out of our own way and just simply taking the first step. And if you're watching this podcast, VoiceOver Body Shop, for some tips on how to get started in voiceover, or to change something about your voiceover career, or to increase your knowledge in a certain area, check out VOHeroes.com's Getting Started in Voiceover. If you go to VOHeroes.com/start, you'll get all the information. It's really cheap, and I give you a lot to get started in the business, but you might also learn something if you've been in the voiceover business for a while. VOHeroes.com/start. That's VOHeroes.com/start.
Hi, this is Bill Farmer, and you are watching VoiceOver Body Shop. It's great.
Ah, yes, Bill Farmer. I had his wife's card, and she's the person you talk to, and then when I got back from Atlanta, I couldn't find the card. So now I got to call. Bill said, I want to be on your show again. And haven't had him on for like 7 or 8 years. So
That's right. He was at VO Atlanta, too.
That's right. He was. As was just about everybody else.
It was quite a show.
It really was. Anyway, we got lots of questions here that we want to get to. Again, you still have time to get your question in if you want, in the chat room in Facebook or in YouTube Live. Anyway, one from Moose, and I saw this question and I'm like, yeah, I can relate to this. It goes, my wife and I are thinking of taking the plunge and buying a vocal booth. After sort of planning to build one, we've gotten a lot closer to just buying one of the prefab ones. Smart idea. My question is, if you had $5,000 to $10,000 to spend on a booth, which would you go with? Studio Bricks, Whisper Room, VocalBooth.com, or any of the others that are out there? I need something that's going to negate, or at least mitigate, any toy droppings on the floor above me and my special needs kid and my wife's spirited work phone calls. You ever notice how your spouse has to talk so loud on the phone as if all of her friends are deaf? Yeah, that's what's going on. Yeah, I'm like, they can hear you. Conversational. Use your indoor voice. Anyway, which booth? If you had $5,000 to $10,000, and I remember he wrote this question in, and I'm like, yeah, that's pretty easy. If you got $10K that you're willing to spend on this, and you don't want to build one, get a Studio Bricks. What do you think?
They're pretty hard to beat. Are they perfect? No, but nothing is. Will they stop the sound of toys falling on the floor above you? Depends on the toy. If it's a 10-pound bowling ball, you're going to hear it, guaranteed. If it's a
who's dropping a 10-pound bowling ball in the apartment above you?
It can sound like that with kids, you know. But if they drop a Lego toy on the floor, probably won't hear it, right? Depends on the loudness of the sound, the frequency of the noise, right? And most of these booths do not have the sheer mass and weight to stop bigger sound waves like that. Like when something hits the floor above you, that big impulse of a noise is going to go right into your booth. I guarantee it. If someone's vacuuming right overhead, boom, the sound of the beater bar on the carpet, yep, you're going to hear that in your booth. Pretty sure. But your neighbor, your wife in the other room on the phone probably will do an excellent job of cutting that out, like 90, 95, 99%, right? Yeah. It very much depends on the frequency range of sound. Studio Bricks has an incredibly good door. They're very good looking. Receiving them by shipment can be a pain in the neck. Depends on the shipping company that ends up bringing it to your door. So there's a lot of pros and cons. I actually have a blog post about it on georgethe.tech, the pros and cons of comparing all these different booths written out in a very long post. So I would recommend you go take a look on my site and read the blog post, because I'm not going to read it here. That'd be a waste of everybody's time. but I spent a lot of time comparing them. But the short answer at this stage still is probably going to be Studio Bricks on the whole, with the other ones all coming in a close second in a lot of different ways.
Right. And I think here's the thing about vocal booths is most people don't understand these were not invented for voice actors. No, the original intent of these things was so a musician could practice in a booth and not bother people on the outside, like in a music studio somewhere, so they could keep practicing. But it also, the thing is it keeps sound from coming out. It also prevents sound from coming in. And therefore,
that's a lot harder, by the way.
It's
a lot harder to keep sound from getting in than it is to keep the sound inside from getting out.
Why is that? Okay, I didn't mean to stump you on that one, but
well, I mean, I have my theories, but like, yeah, I don't have a bulletproof answer for that question. It just, I know that very few of the companies will actually give you those specs, but one that actually does is Studio Bricks. They actually show you on 2 different charts how well it isolates sound from the outside and how well it keeps sound from getting out of the booth. And you'll notice on the whole, by far and large, it definitely performs better at keeping sound inside than it does at keeping sound from getting in from the outside.
Yeah.
So
you know,
that's a thing for sure.
Yeah.
So look at the numbers, make sure when you're comparing, you're really comparing the specs and the stats apples to apples.
Right. And if you got that kind of money, that's why we're saying, Studio Bricks aren't cheap. If you're willing to spend that, it's a great way to guarantee that you will have a quieter space. I've always been of the opinion that if you can cut exterior noise in your home to where your microphone is by, say, 10, 15 dB, that may be more than enough to get you where you need to be for a home voiceover studio. And you can build one for sure. It's going to take you about as long to build one as it is for Studio Bricks to deliver one. But it's not easy. There's a very specific way to build a booth, and you need somebody who actually knows how to do it, or you watch a lot of videos from the manufacturers on how to do it. But we recommend that you get, if you need that kind of silence or that kind of quiet, get yourself a good vocal booth. Any one of them will work. You got that kind of money, you can go hog wild and get a Studio Bricks. Well worth it. Question from Jeff Holman. I'm going to take your suggestion, George, and get some sound panels from ATS to put behind me as a background in my on-camera self-tape studio. Jeff is also an actor that you can see on a number of programs and a couple of movies. But I don't know about the burlap cover. Do you have any experience with their alternate fabrics like micro suede? And how important is it to have a fire rating, which the micro suede apparently does not have?
Well, a fire rating is important in commercial building. You literally can't install products that don't have certain fire ratings. So you'll break you'll get in big trouble, right? So in a home, you can put whatever you want in your home. It's up to you whether you care about fire rating stuff or not. Micro suede is just a nicer sort of furniture grade looking kind of material. It's slightly more lively in terms of reflectiveness. So higher frequencies tend to bounce off it a little bit more, whereas the burlap lets all sound right through the fabric extremely well and does a better job. The burlap is more transparent. The top of the line stuff, the Guilford of Maine, is a lot more expensive, but it looks the part, and it is still acoustically transparent. So it's up to you on what you want to spend on the fabric. If you're going to put it behind a backdrop like a green screen or something else, doesn't matter what fabric you use. Use the cheapest stuff. You're not going to see it anyway. So it depends on whether you want the panels to be seen or not. But the burlap has the best bang for your buck, and that's why that's the default, which comes with that.
Yeah, I just noticed in the chat room someone said, "Could you define a cassette recorder?" Knowing our audience, you all know what a cassette recorder is.
I would think that our main viewership would understand what a cassette recorder is. Yes. If you don't know what that is, first of all, Google it. And second of all, who's the guy? There's a guy that does a great YouTube channel. It's all about retro tech, including cassette recorders and everything else. I can't remember his name right now, but if I find it, I'll put it in the chat room.
Excellent. Yeah. You get the question from Max
Microphone
Goldberg.
or headphones. Max says, speaking of noise canceling headphones, the Sony MDR7506, yay or nay? I would call them an acquired taste. I think a lot of people start with those because they are so common and they're not very expensive and they make their music sound really awesome. But then when they start using them for voiceover, they start realizing it magnifies every little tiny mouth sound and little tiny flaw in your voice, which will make you go crazy overanalyzing your audio. So you may not want something quite as bright and crisp sounding as the Sony headphones because it might make you nuts. However, if you have had a hearing test and you've lost a lot of your hearing above, say, 4 kilohertz, then a headphone that boosts those frequencies might be actually helpful to you. So there's no way for me to judge that for you without you wearing them and trying them on and listening. So you really do need to do your due diligence and try out a lot of different headphones, whether that means buying and returning, going to a great music store that actually has them on display to test, or doing a tremendous amount of research and reading really geeky headphone blogs about comparing the benefits of different headphones. You're not going to know until you put them on your head. Like early in the show, I swapped between my Beyerdynamic DT770 Pros that I've been using. This is only the second pair I've ever owned, and I've been using them for 25 years. They really, really last. I replaced the headband and the ear pads, but they still work great. But they don't sound, when I'm wearing them and talking into the microphone, these sound a little bit, for lack of a better word, muffled. So I don't hear quite as much detail in my voice. So when I switch to the Harlan Hogan headphones, they have a little bit more detail. So I can actually hear the little details in my voice. And when I'm doing a live show, that's actually beneficial versus voice acting. So whatever it is, try them on, wear them. If you don't like them, don't keep them or give them to somebody that you know. I also know voice actors like Scott Rummel who have had that pair of headphones on one ear for 25 years and has lost almost all of his hearing in that ear. So
Yeah, not good.
I'm a little bit concerned about that, the incredible brightness of those headphones. So
Yeah, and interesting to note that a lot of the argument about do you wear headphones when you're doing voiceover, when you're recording, or not, and I've always and I think my philosophy on this is starting to ruminate around everybody else. There are some people, no, I've got to hear every little detail in my voice, therefore I have to wear headphones. And it's like, no, you don't. You really don't want to be listening to yourself through your system when you're recording. And the reason you would wear headphones is, one, you don't want to disturb everybody else in your house, and you don't want to use studio monitors, and you need to edit, and headphones are great for that. Or for listening to a director while you're doing a remote session. Other than that, trying to listen to yourself is kind of distracting, and you forget that it's not about your voice. It's about you communicating the message as another human being to other human beings, and usually one-on-one. And so you don't want to get into the sound of your voice, and that's what a lot of people do. But if you got a good pair of cans to edit with, it's great. Yeah, and we like the Harlan Hogans because they're very flat response. They give you exactly back what you recorded, and that's the most important thing. Question from Grace Newton. George?
Grace says, I'm conducting remote video interviews for my podcast with guests who will only be using their computers, mic, and speakers, because clearly Grace likes a challenge. What are some basic things that I can request of them to better the audio on their end? Well, this exact question came up a couple weeks ago, and I answered it by saying I wrote a whole PDF about this, and I gave it to Maz Jobrani, the comedian, whose podcast I was listening to, and I didn't like the sound of his guests. So I was like, hey, you need something to help you produce better audio quality from your guests. And this was mainly during the pandemic because normally they would do the show in person. So I typed up a whole article. The article I'm going to put a link to in the notes, or in the chat, so you can grab that right now. But it's essentially put the computer as close to their face as possible. So you need to get the
All right.
microphone a lot closer. If you and or they are not willing to buy a $30 USB mic, that's what you're going to have to do. Otherwise, get them a $30 USB lavalier mic, plug it into the computer, have them plug it in, and clip it to their shirt, and it will sound 10 times better than the microphone in their laptop because it's closer to their face.
Yeah.
So that's what I would recommend.
You know, I think maybe we need to start doing a show about podcasting tech. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of other people out there, but I've seen a lot of people going, this is how I do it. Like, yeah, okay, that's fine for you. I mean, we have our own way of doing a podcast because we relate it to voiceover. And
Right.
so we use voiceover mics, and we have them set up to do voice to make this sound like you're doing voiceover. And
But we're interviewing voice actors that have gear.
that's right.
So, and it's amazing even when they do have gear, how they don't know how to get good sound out of that gear. But a lot of these folks like Grace are interviewing people that have zero gear.
Right.
I do find that hard to believe that you've made it through 3.5 years of teleworking and remote working and you don't have a headset yet or any kind of a basic USB headset or anything yet. That kind of blows my mind.
Yeah. I have to
so-
listen to those podcasts and see what's going on there.
Yeah, I mean, how did you make it through all that time? Unless you just literally don't work for a living, and you don't need any of that
Yeah,
stuff. Then good for you.
exactly.
But how could you make it that long and not have at least something, even a gamer headset or the bare minimum, even a AirPod? I mean, an AirPod will sound marginally better, but still a lot better than the mic on a computer that's 3 feet away.
Right,
So,
exactly.
yeah.
You know, I see people using AirPods, you know, for television interviews. Like if you're watching the news, we're now talking with so and so expert, and they're using AirPods, and it sounds like they're, you know, in a large hall with no acoustic treatment, and that's not good. You know, a podcast again, we're talking, you know, again, broadcast quality. The bottom line is you don't want it to sound bad, and there are a lot of things that can make it sound bad. Echo is one of them. So a good acoustical environment is important.
Also, not wearing headphones will make it sound bad.
Yeah.
You want to have the worst possible experience, have everybody on laptops with no headphones.
Right, exactly.
Guarantee the worst possible experience.
Oh, Denny Hankler, our good friend, came up with this.
Hey, Denny.
TechMoan website for vintage audio.
There you go. Denny is on point. I got to hang out with Denny after NAMM on Friday. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, TechMoan. He talk about a rat hole.
TechMoan?
Start watching TechMoan on YouTube. It's a lot of fun because he does a lot of geekery about retro tech, recording technology, consumer technology, tape decks, you know, all that stuff. It's a rat hole, but it's kind of fun. You'll enjoy it.
Yeah. You know, it's like, how do people get hooked on these videos? Oh, that's why.
Idle time.
Suddenly, half an hour goes. I get up in the morning. Oh, yeah, like, oh crap! It's 9 o'clock already. Anyway, Scott Dragset asks, I have a Studio Bricks 1 booth and use a Neumann TLM 103 mic. Good combination. I've been told there are some inherent sound issues with this mic being used in such a small space, even with all sound treatment. George, can you comment about any issues you know about regarding problems with this setup? You know, a TLM 103 is a Neumann TLM 103. It's a very sensitive mic. So, your thoughts?
Yeah,
No.
it's sensitive, and a lot of other mics are sensitive too, even a Rode NT1. What those mics all do is they hear a lot of what's going on around them, not just what's in front of them, because they have a wide cardioid pickup pattern. So the tricky part with Studio Bricks 1, the smallest booth, which I actually have one sitting right behind me, I've been doing experiments with, is the TLM 103 wants to pick up the reflection off that door. Huge piece of glass, and the microphone's right next to it. So I highly recommend covering the door with a heavy drape. Just get a compression rod, shower curtain rod, put it across the door from one wall to the other, and hang a nice heavy drape over that glass and get rid of that giant piece of reflective resonating glass.
Yeah, and you'll have a
that will
much
help
more
tremendously.
Yeah.
And at the low frequency end of things, the bass trap end of things, I don't know. It depends on your voice, Scott. If you have a lot of content in your voice at 80 hertz, you're going to get that booth to ring, as I have found, and you need a lot of bass trapping. The one I have 4 corner traps that go from floor to ceiling stacked up in one corner, or 3 of them in one corner and a 4th one up above the head near the mic, and that seems to calm it down really, really well. But yeah, it can be challenging. The rest of what you can't clean up at the low end, you just do with EQ later. You just do a little low cut and just roll off the bottom end, and that usually cleans it up.
Yeah. And of course, hanging the curtain makes your booth look a lot more bohemian, which is kind of cool. One last question from Jeff Gelder. I'm being forced to upgrade from Audition 5.5. 5.5?
What do you mean being forced?
Yeah,
were
why you being
forced 20 years ago?
Yeah, they're like, hey, we're not supporting this anymore. That I've used for years. Now I'll have to get the subscription-based version. Anything I should know ahead of signing up? Yeah, it's $20 a month. It's the best $20 a month you're ever going to spend, because Adobe Audition is it's got the workflow for voiceover. And the fact of the matter is, if you're still using that, Jeff, you really got to get into literally almost the 21st century.
Well,
5.5 is...
The good news is that 5.5 is of the newer generation of Audition, so it will feel not too unfamiliar. Like if you're going to CC, the Creative Cloud version 2023, it will not feel entirely foreign to you, right? But if you came from 3.0, they are pretty different. So that's the good news. It won't feel that terribly different. If you have a lot of effects racks that you have created in 5.5, they are not likely going to translate and work in the new version at all. So you'll have to rebuild those. So there will be a few pain points there, but I think in the long run, you'll think it's worth it. I think the feature sets, the capability, the tools, the processing it comes with, all those things you'll find it to be worth it in the long run. But yeah, it's a little bit of a process. Don't worry, you're not losing 5.5 by installing the new version. The old version will still be there. But it sounds like you're forced to upgrade because you're buying a new computer that doesn't support the old version, I guess, is what I'm thinking. So if that's the case for you, then yep, you just at some point have to take the plunge.
Absolutely.
Oh, he's getting a new computer, yeah.
That would crash. Okay. Time for a new unit there, Jeff. All right. Great questions, folks. That's what we love to get. And remember, you can always send us questions ahead of time and get top of the queue when we start answering your questions. Just write to us at theguys@vobs.tv. That's our email address here at VoiceOver Body Shop. And I get those questions, and they get to the front of the line when I do the show notes on Monday morning. Anyway, we'll be right back, and we'll clean things up and get ready to go home and have dinner right after these important messages.
This is the Latin lover narrator from Jane the Virgin, Anthony Mendez, and you're enjoying Dan and George on the VoiceOver Body Shop.
Your dynamic voiceover career requires extra resources to keep moving ahead. There's one place where you can explore everything the voiceover industry has to offer. That place is voiceoverextra.com. Whether you're just exploring a voiceover career or a seasoned veteran ready to reach that next professional level, stay in touch with market trends, coaching, products, and services while avoiding scams and other pitfalls. VoiceOver Extra has hundreds of articles, free resources, and training that will save you time and help you succeed. Learn from the most respected talents, coaches, and industry insiders when you join the online sessions, bringing you the most current information on topics like audiobooks, auditioning, home studio setup and equipment, marketing, performance techniques, and much more. It's time to hit your one-stop daily resource for voiceover success. Sign up for a free subscription to newsletters and reports. It's all here at voiceoverextra.com. That's voiceoverextra.com.
All right, my turn to do a live spot for our new sponsor, even though they're an old sponsor, and that is voiceactor.com. VoiceActorWebsites.com is still there, but voiceactor.com is a great website because it will allow you to build a website really, really fast and get it up and on the internet. Because as a voice actor, you got to have a website. It's just, you got to have some sort of an internet footprint out there, and a website is the most important thing. So what you have is voiceactor.com. You can build your voiceover website in minutes. Yeah, it literally took George and I 10 minutes apiece to get our kids' websites for voiceover up there. It's the fastest way to have your voiceover website up and running right now, according to Paul Adamson. They're designed and templated. So it's real easy. Oh, I want this design. You can still customize the colors and all those things, but you can get it up really, really fast. They're mobile responsive, super easy to use. You can edit it yourself so you have complete control. You don't have to call your webmaster, I want to add a comma and a colon here. Oh, that'll be $25. Not the case with voiceactor.com. Get your website up. It is built for voice actors by voice actors and founded by voiceover pros like me. It was my idea. Believe it or not, it was my idea to come up with this, and it's finally there. So join over at voiceactor.com and you will have an amazing website just for you.
We are the World Voices Organization,
Also known as WOVO. We're the not-for-profit industry association of freelance voice talent. Voiceover is a complex entrepreneurial business.
WOVO is there to promote the professional nature of voice work to the public, to those already established in their voiceover practice,
And to those who want to pursue voiceover as a career.
Membership benefits include
A supportive and creative community.
a profile and demos on voiceover.biz, our searchable directory of vetted professional voice talent,
Our exclusive demo player for your personal website.
our mentoring program, business resources, and our video library.
Our annual WovoCon conference, a fun and educational weekend with other members with the chance to learn and network.
Webinars and great speakers, and weekly social chats with other members around the world.
If your world is voiceover,
Make WOVO part of it. World Voices Organization.
we speak
for those
who speak for a living.
This is Bill Ratner, and you're enjoying VoiceOver Body Shop with Dan Leonard and George Whittam. VOBS.TV.
All right, and we're back to say goodbye, but got to let you know that next week we'll be back live at our usual time, 5 Pacific, with our wonderful guest, Rebecca Davis. We love Rebecca.
Right on.
Don't
Hopefully in
get
studio,
to
too.
see her enough. She's just right across town, but we run into each other in other places across the country. It's like, well, gee, why don't we get together and have dinner or something like that with all our spouses and friends and just not talk about voiceover. Let's talk about travel. Rebecca and I were in Paris at the same time, and amazingly, we did not run into each other.
I mean, who to guess? You'd think two voice actors in one city, they got to run into each other at some point, right?
Absolutely. All right, let's thank our donors of the week, because without them, we wouldn't have donation money to keep the show going. Robert Leadham,
Stephen Chandler,
Casey Clack,
Jonathan Grant,
Tom Pinto,
Shelley Avellino,
Greg Thomas,
A Dr. Voice,
Antland Productions,
Martha Kahn,
949 Designs,
Christopher Epperson,
Sarah Borges,
Philip Sapir,
Brian Page,
Patty Gibbons,
Rob Ryder,
Shauna Pennington Baird,
Don Griffith,
Trey Mosley,
Diana Birdsall, and Sandra Manwiller. All righty. Again, if you need help with your home voiceover studio, that's what George and I do. You can find me over at homevoiceoverstudio.com. And George is over at
GeorgeThe.Tech, and this week coming up after the beginner one we're having on the 18th, we have a 25th date for the Reaper Advanced webinar. So if you
Cool.
want to get deeper into Reaper, head over to GeorgeThe.Tech and use that VOBS Fan 10 for 10% off.
All right. We need to thank our sponsors who've been with us loyally, like Harlan Hogan's Voiceover Essentials,
Oh my goodness. Still here after all these years. VoiceOver Extra,
Source Elements,
VOHeroes.com,
VoiceActor.com, and worldvoices.org, the Industry Association of Freelance Voice Talent. WovoCon's coming up. You got to be a member to go there. Orlando, Florida. It is May 5th through the 7th at the Doubletree Hotel there. Going to be a great time if you want to meet up with a lot of your peers. If you're a member of Wovo, join us. If you're not a member of Wovo, join us and then join us. Anyway, thanks to Jeff Holman in the chat room tonight, getting us all those great questions and talking with our wonderful audience out there. And Sue Merlino for knowing when just to hit the right button when we say something. Like if I say, if you want to write to us, you find us at
the guys
at VOBS.t. Caught her there. All right, whatever. All right. Oh, and of course, Lee Penny, just for being Lee Penny. Come visit us, Lee, for crying out loud. That's going to do it for us this week. You want to know something? Voiceover is not an easy business. Really hard is making sure that your audio is right. But we've come to the conclusion that if it sounds good,
it is good.
I'm Dan Leonard.
And I'm George Whittam.
And this is Voiceover
Body Shop.
Or VOBS. Tech Talk.
Tech Talk.
Tech Talk. All right. We'll see you next week, everybody. Have a good one.